afternoon, and it's a very great honor to be speaking here today. Thank you very much for inviting me. Urban populations are soaring. By the end of 2017, there were 46 megacities worldwide, urban agglomerations each with more than 10 million inhabitants. In each of these cities, the density of the population in relation to available resources, infrastructure, and services has given rise to complaints about overcrowding, while demands for affordable housing, proper sanitation, food supply, and healthcare services are all put under pressure as a result of mass migration to the cities. Meanwhile, we estimate that around 30% of the world's population now lives in cities with more than 500,000 inhabitants. Now, as these populations grow, so too will the problems associated with population growth. Traffic is slowing to a crawl on roads crowded with commuter vehicles, which are often struggling to find parking spaces and which exacerbate pollution levels. In such uncomfortable environments, stress levels rise as we face long journeys to our workplace. We may find it difficult to reach our workplace on time or to find time for ourselves and for our families. In such environments, our well-being suffers. Depression and illness thrive. And we also have aging populations which are large in number yet can feel increasingly isolated, that often struggle to access fundamental services such as healthcare. Meanwhile, the municipal authorities, having restricted budgets, can struggle to maintain that infrastructure needed to support these existing populations, let alone rapidly expanding ones. So we've got pollution, time, personal well-being, support. These individually and collectively are some of the key challenges that confront those who would govern our cities and our megacities. The cities are thus being forced to consider how to alleviate these pressures. Technology, analytics, and modern urban policies are emerging as smart solutions that can deliver sustainable, efficient environments. So what I want to do today is to explore how a combination of new technologies, platforms, and services has the potential to transform the quality of urban life for the better. Through 5G connectivity, through the Internet of Things, through new concepts such as the hydrogen economy, smart cities can deliver tangible benefits to city authorities, corporations and organizations, employees and inhabitants, as well as to the environment which they all inhabit. So these benefits are manifold. You have time savings resulting in greater workplace efficiencies. Meanwhile, the benefits of greater connectivities can be combined with those from new sources of energy, such as hydrogen being used as a replacement in transport, heating fuel, and energy storage. Now, we've been conducting research into smart city environments for around 5 years now, and we'd like to share some of that research. We've collaborated with a number of industry partners to demonstrate further benefits that smart cities can bring. Amongst those was Intel. While this presentation will also draw, besides the presentation on the study with Intel, on studies that we've published on urban opportunities arriving from 5G, which we did with O2, and on the prospects of urban mobility, which we did with Movell. So let's look at some of these each in turn. So let's begin with looking at traffic and how that can benefit. The motor vehicle, often presented as a symbol of personal freedom, is commonly anything but inside city limits. High volumes of vehicle ownership, coupled with 20th century urban planning modelled around the automobile, have created massive pressure on the road infrastructure. Consequently, you have long traffic jams, elevating stress levels. Additionally, the slow movement of traffic increases the volume of microscopic particulate matter affecting the health of drivers, as well as those on the streets. Traffic and air pollution are serious issues facing cities today. TomTom's annual report highlighted the issue of heavy traffic. Mexico City drivers, for example, must spend on average 2/3 more time getting to their destination than if there had been no traffic on the roads. Indeed, as we demonstrated in our studies, heavy congestion in cities can result in drivers spending more than 70 hours a year in gridlock. So in many of those cities, the average peak time speed is just 6 kilometers an hour. And the World Health Organization estimates that 3 million deaths every year are attributable to that small particulate matter pollution, a large proportion of which is generated by vehicle emissions. So, how to address this within the context of a smart city? We would argue that one key approach is to embrace the concept of mobility as a service, which was referred to briefly in the previous presentation. And by this, I mean urban transport solutions that are integrated into a single platform by which users can determine the best route and price across several end-to-end travel services and modes according to real-time data such as traffic conditions and time of day. So let's look at the example we have here of young Zach. Now, Zach travels around 30 kilometers from the suburbs to his city office every morning. On a weekday, it takes him around 70 minutes to drive to work due to commuter traffic on the New York roads. However, by accessing a mobility as a service app, he's able to make his daily commute more convenient and accessible at a time he wants. So what Zach does, he books an electric minibus sharing service from just outside his home to the nearest rail station, 5 minutes. He commutes via train to the final stop, just around 1.5 miles or 2 kilometers outside his office location, 25 minutes. He decides to book a rideshare service in the first instance, but then he finds out that there's a lot of congestion, so instead he uses a bike sharing scheme to cycle the final 2 kilometers using the bike route. By using this smart approach, he's saving around 25 to 30 minutes on his daily commute. And in each case, he's presented with real-time prices that are based on a best fare calculation at each point in the dynamic journey management process. Once that's been completed, once the trip's been completed, the app calculates the total cost and deducts it directly from his linked payment card or wallet. Now, while this is a very entry-level service based on a mobility as a service app, the opportunity exists to expand and to offer related services benefiting both society and other stakeholders. For example, the app could further enable users to connect with other users to get points, exchange credits, and compare fitness scores, as well as share commute timings and location. In addition, the app could be extended to integrate services such as loyalty and discount schemes from brands, vehicle trading services, and streaming services. Moving even further forwards, autonomous vehicles deployed as shared on-demand service vehicles will reduce the need for car ownership, where services are deployed as multi-occupancy rides with vehicle passengers determined by similar origin, by route, or by destination. Meanwhile, the ability to drive in close proximity will maximize the road space and in turn reduce congestion. Vehicles' communication with city infrastructure will ensure that software analytics running in the background can determine optimal traffic light phasing according to real-time conditions. So we did some studies with Intel on who were the mobility leaders. Now, we found that 3 cities, Singapore, San Francisco, and London, were found to be world leading in addressing urban transportation challenges. Singapore has applied smart connected traffic solutions in conjunction with a very strong policy curtailing car ownership in an effort to reduce the amount of vehicles on its roads. Now, while that's possible in Singapore, that's not possible in San Francisco or London. However, these cities have applied their own traffic calming solutions alongside long-term visions for transformative transportation paradigms in the form of mobility as a service and autonomous vehicles. So we found that these kind of projects have the possibility to give back nearly 60 hours per annum per citizen. So you've got, in the first instance, intelligent traffic systems. These can be used to dynamically adjust traffic light phasing, minimize red light delays, and smooth overall traffic flow. Parking space availability can be used to inform drivers where the nearest available space is, minimizing the time spent looking for spaces. Open data. This can be used to harness both city agencies and third parties to develop innovation around that data. So we suggest that commute times just by using open data can be reduced by up to 15% by highlighting optimum routes for a given day. Cashless payments, likely to impact on 36 billion journeys per annum, saving you nearly half a minute every time you make a payment. And lastly, initiatives such as autonomous vehicles mass will create safer roads. So let's look at one of the other key aspects of the smart cities. And let's look at healthcare. First of all, let's look at the problems. Many cities across the globe report very high hospital bed occupancy rates, over 85%. This can result in exorbitant wait times for inpatients, resulting in both time wasted and additional stress for both patients and caregivers. This in turn exacerbates the likelihood of mistakes being made. Furthermore, studies have indicated that overcrowding in hospitals can increase the risk of patients contracting a disease or infection during their stay, in some cases by over 10%. This means that patients in hospital for non-life-threatening conditions may in turn be exposed to environments that could prove fatal for them. So, when looking at how healthcare can benefit from smart city policies, it's also critical to bear in mind how the implementation of 5G networks can help in this context. By 2025, an ecosystem will have developed, bringing together telehealth and wearable tracking to move towards a preventative healthcare system where citizens are able to constantly monitor vital aspects of their health at all times. For the inhabitants of the smart city, this will reduce time spent waiting at the surgery with the added benefit of reduced risk of exposure to the various infections and viruses on offer, you might say, in the surgery waiting room. Furthermore, the ubiquitous monitoring through healthcare devices, leveraged by 5G networks, will enable individuals to monitor for early signs of conditions, such as heart attacks or strokes, reducing the number of hospital admissions. 5G telehealth services will strengthen the care process once a patient has left hospital. Finally, with 5G able to provide a more reliable, robust connection and able to better track data in real time through low power sensors and ubiquitous connectivity, these services could be more widely adopted on a city level across countries. This will become especially important as the elderly population increases. Now, for those paying for private residential or elderly care, this could in turn lead to savings of an average of several £100s per annum, in addition to other social benefits such as additional autonomy for those in care, easing pressure on relatives and giving them reassurance about their loved ones. In the same way as for mobility, we produced an index for the top-ranked cities for healthcare. So in this case, the top-ranked cities were found to be Singapore, Seoul, and London. Both Singapore and Seoul were notable in terms of their focus on addressing healthcare service provision for elderly citizens through a range of technologies, including digital service platforms as well as remote monitoring devices. If one considers the fact that on average the number of annual visits to a physician increases substantially as one ages, from an average of around 5 to 12 to 13, it is clear that these strategies form a crucial part of ensuring that the overall healthcare system is not overburdened. In turn, this improves overall healthcare outcomes. Meanwhile, London has applied a broad strategy that combines innovations such as bicycle sharing schemes, telehealth, and a strategy to reduce telehealth inequality in the city. Now, the study found that digital healthcare can provide a big role in creating efficiencies with benefit felt at both the citizen level as well as on the caregiving side, and we've quantified some of those on the right-hand side of the slide. The research found that in instances where telemedicine had been deployed, overall patient readmission rates were reduced by between 20 and 40%. The net effect of a global rollout would be to dramatically reduce the number of instances where wait time for hospital beds currently exceeds 4 hours. Artificial intelligence will be used as a key element in future chatbot and service access, enabling them to be used as preliminary diagnosis tools for triage or to generate appointments. Alone, these chatbots can save an average of 15 minutes per contact over traditional mechanisms. As I mentioned, the average citizen visits the doctor 5 times per annum, more so when they're elderly or suffer from a chronic condition. Apps that analyse data received from quantified self-devices, as well as remote physician appointments by video link, can serve to reduce or even eliminate physical visits to the physician. And individuals suffering from chronic conditions will often have to visit their physician multiple times per annum. Now, over 1/3 of the world's population is in need of long-term healthcare management. In this case, remote monitoring devices can help reduce the need for physical diagnosis while helping to better manage long-term health conditions. We also believe that smart cities will aim to democratise across access to technology, simplify municipal service delivery, and encourage innovation from both domestic and foreign origins. Juniper's study found that numerous services in the average city are ripe for disruption in terms of how they are organised and delivered. This is particularly the case where data is used to create more efficient services. These range from complex issues surrounding the establishment of businesses in the city to simple services such as retail payments. Now, some cities have nevertheless made significant strides in this area. London has recognised that the economy is increasingly driven by digital technology. As such, the city's Smart London Plan declared that extra funding would be channeled into the educational system to increase uptake of computer science courses. Additionally, the Greater London Authority conducted an assessment of the impact of digital exclusion in 2015 alongside a set of measures to reduce exclusion. In turn, this has resulted in schemes to increase digital literacy as well as reducing barriers for getting citizens online. Departments in cities have historically operated in silos from one another. The concept of ongoing shared information used as a means to create efficiency has been rarely implemented until recently. The result of this has been that, for example, the complex rules and permits required to start a business can take and use up a substantial amount of time. In Rio de Janeiro, citizens must wait an average of 45 days before their new business can begin operations. Meanwhile, cities still hold much of their data on paper or still rely on antiquated mechanisms to share information. In the UK, some national health trusts must still print and fax their patients' electronic health records owing to a failure to introduce interoperable systems. The study also found that substantial time savings could be achieved if information was stored using interoperable software systems and aggregated using APIs or similar mechanisms. If this approach were implemented, that 45 days I mentioned in Rio could be reduced to a single day. It also focused on cashless payments on transport systems. Here, as I mentioned, citizens have the potential to save vital seconds per transaction using cashless mechanisms. So with a net result, we have here of savings of nearly 22 hours per annum. Let's move next on to energy. High municipal bills related to energy consumption, as well as aging grid infrastructure and the prospect of mass deployed electric vehicle and autonomous vehicle, means that cities must develop new strategies for energy consumption and delivery. Global energy consumption in cities is expected to reach over 8,000 terawatt hours this year, a global average of 3.7 megawatt hours per capita. For energy suppliers, this volume presents significant challenges that must be addressed, including thermal limitations, constrained interconnections, and the need to cope with renewable energy resources which do not provide a consistent source of energy and can thus cause voltage fluctuations along distribution lines, leading to brownouts, or even in the worst case, blackouts. However, the modern grid is undergoing a transformation. The need for highly reliable supply, alongside increases in intermittent energy sources, has resulted in the need for a reactive, smart grid. Sensors fitted along the grid, along with smart meters customers' premises, are key to enabling the next generation grid. Here, mobile connectivity, and more specifically 5G technology, will provide a key role in realizing this over the coming years. This 5G technology enables the data collection, transmission, and analysis that the next generation grids will require, meaning that suppliers can respond to real-time demand and supply issues, driving more dynamic pricing and reducing bills for consumers. The creation of microgrids will also allow consumers to choose where they buy energy. And in turn, this will allow them to split bills between regional suppliers and local microgrids. They can also reduce bills by opting for more competitively priced suppliers. In addition, 5G smart meters will help households be more efficient and reduce energy theft, reducing further bills. Now, I'm going to talk very briefly about the hydrogen economy, aware that we've got other people coming on to talk about it afterwards. As an adjunct to these benefits, the governments are increasingly exploring ways in which urban life can be further enhanced via the hydrogen economy, which refers to a vision of using hydrogen as an alternative low-carbon energy source that can be used as a replacement in transport, heating, and fuel storage. In Korea, as you may well be aware, the government recently set aside 110 billion won with the aim of boosting the hydrogen industry and developing energy technologies for cars, buses, railways, and vessels, as well as power generation. Other countries are engaged in this too. Canada is dropping hints that it would like to be the first country in the world with a full-size hydrogen fuel cell passenger train. And the auto world is buzzing about Hyundai's next new Nexo fuel cell. So I'll just move on to the last slide now, in conclusion. We've highlighted a number of the time savings on a per use case basis, but there are additional critical savings that smart cities can enable. We estimate that by 2022, smart city practices can reduce global CO2 emissions by over 250 megatons. To achieve these kind of reductions by other means, for example, you'd need to plant over 1.5 billion trees. Meanwhile, the cost savings afforded by energy and CO2 reductions are expected to reach nearly 38 billion annually by 2022. At a time when municipal budgets are increasingly stretched, these represent substantial savings, representing more than $15 per city inhabitant per annum. Now, to close, in the course of this presentation, I've sought to provide an indication of the benefits and the opportunities that a truly smart city can bring to its denizens, its municipal authorities, its enterprises, and to its very environment. Such cities can vastly improve the quality of urban life for those who live in them and for those who work in them. Thank you very much for listening.
윈저 홀든 주니퍼 리서치 컨설팅 부문장님의 강연 들어보았습니다.